Hey guys! Oh my gosh, you guys, I am back. I am back on YouTube. I am so happy right now. I'm so excited. So for my video back, I thought I would do my birth story video for you guys. I have already filmed this video and there was like a technical difficulty with the video, so I'm going to completely refilm it. So already my son is almost 4 months old, so I'm hoping I can remember everything. I wanted to go ahead and get the birth story video out ASAP, so that is what this video is going to be. I am so excited. My story is kind of all over the place. I did not take notes throughout labor and delivery, so I can't really give you like times and everything like that. I've probably forgotten a lot just because it's been so long, and to be honest, my story was a little bit scary at times, so I'm kind of happy that I forgot some of it. Also, the reason why it took so long was because my postpartum has been a lot harder than I thought it would be. If you do not know what kind of happened to me and what I had to go through thus far postpartum, definitely go check out my Instagram and you can kind of catch up on the surgery that I had to have and all of that fun stuff. So definitely go check out my Instagram. I will have my whole postpartum journey in a whole nother video. I kind of wanted to get a little bit deeper in postpartum and get into a good place of postpartum before I did that video. So I will have that video for you guys later on. But anyway, this is my birth story video. This is not to make any women nervous. I watched 100 birth story videos before I delivered, and while sometimes it made me feel comfort, it also made me have some fear. So I just want to put this out there before I even start the video that labor was nothing that I thought it was going to be, and that's actually a good thing for me. I thought labor was going to be the most traumatic thing in the whole world. I thought it was just going to be so painful. Labor is not what you think it is, and I just want to put every woman's mind at ease. If you found my video and you're about to have a baby for the first time, do not stress about it. I know it's much easier said than done, but ladies, please do not worry about it the way that I did. That's not to say labor is easy, but that's just to say it's not as scary the day of. So anyway, let's start from the beginning of my story. So on July 3rd, it was a Tuesday, y'all know that I was supposed to be induced with my little one. I was 41 weeks at that point. I was 41 weeks and 1 day, and throughout a lot of my pregnancy, I had read that first-time moms, the average time that they actually go into natural labor is 41 weeks and 1 day. I was scheduled to be induced at 41 weeks and 1 day. And so I was like, I wonder if I'll ever go into natural labor without being induced. Y'all know I kind of had my fears of being induced. I had heard, Pitocin really makes really powerful, painful contractions. So I was really nervous to be induced. So on July 3rd at about 4 or 5 in the morning, you guys know throughout a lot of my pregnancy, I was having issues with my cat peeing on me, and I was getting really frustrated. Obviously, no one wants to be peed on, but I knew that there had to be something I was giving off. I knew there had to be a hormone I was giving off, because every time that would happen, something kind of big in the pregnancy would happen that day. So I knew there had to be a reason why she was doing it. My cat's like 9, 10 years old. She had never done that before in her entire life, and I knew she did not have a bladder infection or anything like that. So I was dealing with that, as you guys know, and I know it sounds really gross, but Mother Nature, you guys. So at about 4 or 5 in the morning on July 3rd, I actually woke up to the cat peeing on me. She peed right on me and woke up to it, was really frustrated, really annoyed, because I knew I was scheduled to be induced at around 6:30 that night. And so I wanted to get as much sleep as I could, and so I was very frustrated that she had peed on me. I didn't want to lose out on sleep, so my husband and I ended up going into the guest room to finish our slumber in there. So we go to the guest room. I have all of the laundry obviously in the wash. So I finally get to sleep somewhere around 6 a.m. At 7:20, I ended up kind of tossing and turning in bed, and when I would, it almost felt like I was getting my period. TMI, and actually let me put a disclaimer out there now. This video is going to be very TMI. I'm not going to hold anything back. I'm going to let y'all know how it was. So if you do not like hearing this type of stuff, this video is not for you. So I ended up feeling like I was starting my period. I felt like I was about to actually start bleeding. So I kind of tossed and turned in bed for like a solid, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. So this was more like at 7:15. And then about 7:20, I got up and went to the bathroom. And as I was walking to the bathroom, I'm like, something's really weird. I get to the actual toilet and my water broke right into the toilet, just started gushing. And I knew immediately that's what it was. And so like my water's breaking and I'm sitting there like, holy crap, this is happening. So my water breaks in the toilet, and as you know, you are supposed to check your liquid if it's to break, you know, outside the hospital. You want to check your liquid to see what color it is, to see if there's an infection, to see if there's meconium in it. You just want to check it and see what color it is so that you can tell the nurses when you go into triage, you know, the color. So I check, and there was actually blood in it. Not a lot, but there was blood. And at that point, I bawled. I broke down. I started crying. I didn't understand why there was blood. I had never read that that would be something. I didn't know that there could be blood in your water. So at that point, I'm freaking out. I'm just terrified. I'm devastated. I'm like so upset. And I ended up calling my husband. I was like, babe, 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 my water broke. And I'm like really excited, but at the same time, I'm really, really scared. So naturally, we ended up Googling to see if that was normal, and it's completely normal. If you end up seeing blood in your water, it's totally normal. So that completely eased my nerves, knowing that everything was fine. I did not have any contractions at that point. I wasn't in any kind of pain at that point at all. I felt totally normal. So we ended up, you know, obviously getting ready to go to the hospital, and something I always envisioned was being able to call my mom and say, my water broke, I'm going to the hospital, meet me there. That was always something I really wanted to have in my birth story, and thankfully I did. I called my mom, we called our family and let them all know. My mom was so excited. She's like, okay, and she's trying to be really calm, but I know she's super excited at the same time. But she's trying to be calm to make sure I'm calm, and I'm at this point, I'm in a good mood, I'm not in any pain, I'm excited, I'm gonna meet my son, and sooner than I thought, and I just was really, I was ready. So husband and I start packing, finishing up all of our last minute packing, and my husband begins shaving his face. He starts shaving, he is grooming himself, he's getting all done up, and I'm like, okay, because at this point I wasn't in any pain, and it was just, it's a funny add-on to the story that he literally was shaving as my water was breaking. So another thing to note is once your water breaks, it doesn't stop. You don't stop leaking. It just keeps happening. So immediately I had to throw on a pad and kind of keep myself contained. That was really uncomfortable, I'd have to say. Probably one of the most uncomfortable parts of this entire story. So yeah, we end up finally hopping into the car, getting to the hospital, and as we are in the parking lot, we see my dad and my sister. They already beat us to the hospital, and the best part is my mom was already in triage at that point, wondering where I was. And so finally my mom calls and she's like, honey, are you not in the hospital? Because they're telling me you're not here. And I'm like, no, we just pulled in, we ran into dad, and anyway, we started walking finally to triage, get there, everything is good, I'm happy, we're all happy, filling out paper. Just so you know, make sure you pre-register, because even if you do pre-register, it is still a waiting process, like waiting to actually get into triage. We still had to like wait around in there for a while. Then finally we got into triage, and thankfully at this hospital, every woman still has their own room, not even blocked by a curtain or anything like that. We had our own room in triage, which was really nice. So we're there, my mother-in-law ends up showing up, and it's just my mom, my mother-in-law, and I believe my husband in the room with me, and we're hanging out, all's fine, still not having any serious contractions, and they end up checking me for dilation and effacement and all that good stuff. And when she did, I don't know if they also try and do like the motion of stripping your membranes or what, but it was awful. It was nothing like what they do in the doctor's office. It was so painful. I don't know what they have to do to check, but it hurt. I'm probably making it a little more dramatic, but I'm at this point crying and literally crawling away from her, doing everything I can to get this nurse away from me. And she was a wonderful, sweet, kind nurse, but I needed her away from me. My mom and my mother-in-law were like settling me down, making sure I was okay, and you know, my mom felt so bad seeing me in that much pain, and we hadn't even started painful contractions yet. We weren't even there yet. So yeah, that happened, and then finally after she checked me, I was fine. She said the fluid and everything was good, there was no issues, I was good to go. And they end up putting you in a gown, and when you're in the gown, you have absolutely nothing underneath. You don't have underwear, you don't have anything. So as my water is breaking, I'm just breaking on the bed, just leaking. But don't worry, there is like a pad thing under you to where it's catching all of the fluid, so you're good. I was in triage for quite a while because, like I said, this was July 3rd, and so I originally was supposed to be induced on July 2nd because July 4th, obviously, But because it was so busy of other women wanting to be induced on July 2nd or be induced before July 4th, basically, I had to wait until July 3rd for an opening in the first place. So obviously I was going before my induction because I did start natural labor myself. And so the rooms upstairs were completely booked. Like, I had to be in triage. I think I was in there for maybe 4 or 5 hours in triage. I got to the hospital, let's say around maybe 9-ish, about 8:45-ish. I got to the hospital and was in triage till probably about 1 or 2. So I was there for quite a while in triage, and I finally got a room upstairs, like I said, kind of around 1 or 2. And I loved my nurse. The nurse I had up there was awesome. She was so much fun. She reminded me of my best friend, and she just was I loved her so much. She brought so much, like, just calm, peace. She was really, really great. So when I was checked, I was around 3 or 4 centimeters. I want to say I was about 4 centimeters when I was originally checked in triage. So that made me feel good knowing that I was already progressing. I believe my visit before that, I was more around like 1.5 centimeters, maybe even 2. I'll have to see, my last bump date video. But I had progressed, which made me feel pretty good. So I was in labor and delivery, still not having any serious contractions. I was having them at this point, and basically was just having mild period cramps is what they felt like. Just mild period cramps, nothing serious, didn't feel like I needed any kind of medicine or anything like that, just feeling okay. My midwife finally comes in, and I had not met my midwife. I had met every single doctor and midwife at this practice except for her. I think actually there were 3 I had not met in the entire practice, and she was one of them. And so I finally got to meet her. She was really fun, really outgoing, really just bubbly, and a really good time. So I really was feeling good about it. I'm like, okay, great, she's wonderful. I think I'll really have a fine experience with her. She checks me and everything, says I'm looking good, everything's going good, and we're just gonna wait out this whole labor thing, just like any old story. So after that, everyone pretty much came to visit. Both my mother-in-laws, both my father-in-laws, my dad was there with my sister the entire time, but anytime it was a girly check, he would step out with my sister. And when I would think of my birth story, I never thought I would be okay with people in the room with me, because I thought I would just be really uncomfortable and in a lot of pain, and just it'd be really weird with people in there. But surprisingly, it really helped pass the time, and it made me feel comfortable having such a huge support system there. So when they weren't in the room, I knew they were in the waiting room, and that just made me feel really, really good.
There you go. Now you're being filmed.
They can't have any score
What do you want?
higher for you than
So
me.
this morning, my water broke
I don't know what
at 7:20.
how I got to that screen or
And
whatever.
then
but
now
it's
we're
like
here and I'm on
3% make it
Tosin.
10,000.
Well, then I have to make it to
At
10,000,
6.
won't I? Just to show
Time's
my
it?
progress.
3.
It's a little
What time is
okay,
that? 3:45. We're just waiting for Grayson. I don't have any contractions.
Didn't tell me I have no more.
So I really did personally enjoy having people either in the room with me or in the waiting room. Just knowing I had such a good support system was a really, really, really huge help.
Is she worried about the leaking and that she's hungry? She's not that much better.
No,
Her most concern is food
and leaking.
and leaking.
The leaking.
Which the leaking would be the last of my
Walked
concern.
up with a milkshake.
Just give me my
Can I get a milkshake, por favor? Rápido.
My milkshake.
So hours went by, everyone would start asking, how I was feeling, what was going on, why I was not asking for an epidural, and just kind of where my mindset was. And I honestly, I had contractions. I felt them. I knew exactly what they felt like. Honestly, I was having contractions. I was feeling it. I was going through it. And surprisingly, I was able to maintain my pain. I did not feel the agonizing pain I thought I was going to. I didn't feel what you see in movies or what you hear other women talk about. I'm not saying labor isn't hard, but I did not feel the same pain. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, is what I should probably say. Wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was definitely manageable. Definitely something, maybe someday I would have been able to have done an all-natural labor. It just wasn't something I wanted to do. So I knew I wanted to get an epidural at some point, but I just wasn't ready. I wanted to wait until the very last second to get one, mainly because I had heard of epidurals wearing off, and I just almost wanted to see, I don't want to say I wanted to see what a natural labor was, but I just wanted to progress. I wanted to see where it would go, type of thing. I was playing it by ear. And so everyone started seeing the contractions on the screen and they were all like, honey, you need to get an epidural. Like, look at these contractions. And I'm like, I'm going through them. I'm breathing through them just fine. Y'all are distracting me. Like, I was doing, honestly, truthfully, fine without the epidural. And again, not saying I wasn't in pain, but I just didn't feel like I needed it.
Describe what's going on.
My belly goes whoosh.
Pitocin.
We're thinking that.
Hours and hours and hours went by. Everyone was going to have dinner at this point. There's fireworks going on outside. It becomes definitely dark time. When finally I was like, okay, my contractions were picking up. They were becoming more painful. And I knew, okay, I really should get it because no, I don't want to have a natural birth. I did not want to actually feel him come out of me. So that was pretty much my main goal, was to make sure I at least had epidural working at that time when it was time to push. By that time, everyone was like, honey, you need to get this epidural, you need to get it. And I didn't really understand why they were saying it. I'm like, I'm doing just fine. But I guess, you know, on the monitor, they could see different stuff and they could see the contractions were getting really, really strong. I guess maybe in my face, I was grimacing some. And so it just, they would have felt better with me having an epidural. And so no, they weren't pushy. Don't say, oh, do what you want to do. That's not how it was. They just kept saying, if you know you want an epidural, you might as well do it now. Why go through this pain that you're going through? So they finally made a good point by saying that, and I was like, okay, fine. So I agreed to getting the epidural, signed the papers and everything, got all netted up and ready for the epidural. I looked like crap at that point, so I guess I was going through stuff. So I was ready for the epidural at that point. Got all suited up, got all ready, was on the side of the bed, which that's the other thing. It's really hard to move when you're having contractions. Like, when you have like a contraction, you have to just kind of sit still. You really can't move. And so yeah, it was really hard to kind of shift even from laying down to the side of the bed. That alone was like a lot of work. So I finally get all ready though to get my epidural, and the nurse comes in and says, oh no, we can't give you your epidural because the anesthesiologist had to go into an emergency C-section. So at that point, I'm obviously frustrated. I'm excited to have the epidural, and I was afraid of the epidural, to be honest. I was nervous that it was gonna hurt, and so I wanted to get that part of my story out of the way as well. I wanted that just behind me. So I was really upset. I'm like, okay, I can't get it now. Really upset, got all undone. They took my net off, took everything, you know, I think you had to have certain stuff on, and they took it all off, whatever. Got back in bed, and then all of a sudden the anesthesiologist walks in, and I'm like, are you serious? So at this point it was around 8 o'clock at night when this happened. The anesthesiologist walks in and we're like, oh, thought I couldn't get my epidural. And he's like, well, I'm here, aren't I? I was like, all right, I heard that you're supposed to be everyone's best friend during this time, but you're not my best friend right now. Just kind of rude. Noting too, the nurse that I had at that point, it was obviously a shift change. I think shift changes are usually around 7:30. This nurse could tell that she was a big support for me and that I felt really comfortable with her. So she had asked, would you like me to be in the room when you get your epidural? And I said, absolutely. So she waited an extra like almost hour for me to have an epidural, and so she could be there and hold my hand, which was such a great thing, you guys. Like, that was so amazing. If you are a nurse or you're in the medical field and you've never had a baby or you've never had surgery or anything really scary happen to you, do your best to have empathy. I've read a lot of articles where that's really important for nurses to be that way, and I didn't realize how important it was until obviously I was the patient. No, I'm not in the medical field. So I finally get the epidural, and when they put a shot in so that they numb you before they actually put the epidural through, and the shot hurt. I'm not gonna lie, it hurt. It hurt really bad. It really got me. It was more of a startle, I guess I would say. But it startled me, and you have to sit still. You obviously can't move, and it's right in your spine, which is very, very dangerous. And so I was just like, I was hurting and I was scared and I didn't like it, but all was fine. When they put that epidural in, I didn't really feel it per se. I felt like a little bit of movement in my back, but I didn't feel any pain or anything like that. After you get that epidural, they kind of like test to see if it's starting to work, when it's gonna work. They said it takes about 15 minutes for you to be fully numb. So I was feeling a little bit of contractions, but it did not take 15 minutes. I would say it took anywhere from like 5 to 7 minutes for it to really kick in. So after that, I'm feeling good. I was told, you know, when you get an epidural, what your body does is your body can finally relax, which allows, you know, the natural contractions to happen, which is funny because that's what I had said in one of my bump date videos. I was like, you know what? I think what an epidural does is it relaxes you, and it does. Because the pain goes away, you're not tense, so your body can naturally do what it needs to do. So she had said, when I got my epidural, my midwife came in again, and she's like, why don't you go to sleep, and I promise you when you wake up, you'll be ready to have your baby. And When people tell you to go to sleep, it's really hard to go to sleep because you have so much excitement in you. You're in pain or you're nervous or whatever, but the excitement is what kind of takes over at this point in labor, and you're just so excited you don't want to sleep. Like, they just kept saying, please go to sleep, get some rest, because you're about to go through something really, really hard as far as like physically. So they're like, get some rest. And my mom kept saying, honey, you need to go to sleep, you need to go to bed. It's like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at this point. And I'm like, are you crazy? I am so excited right now, and you think I'm gonna go to sleep? So the only people in the room were my mom and my husband. I didn't really want anyone else in the room when the really serious stuff happened. Everyone else had already gone home at that point, and you know, it just was my mom and my husband and I. And so my mom and I kind of stayed up talking. My husband was exhausted. He had something the day before where he was already tired. I can't remember. So he was exhausted. He just totally passed out. He got himself comfortable and passed out. My mom ended up falling asleep in like a chair, but I had it blazing cold. They had to bundle up. They're throwing sheets on them. They're throwing anything on top of them that they can, because I had the temperature the very coldest it could possibly go. It was freezing in the room. I was burning up. I was just like super, super hot. At this point, I end up going to sleep. I think I did finally fall asleep for like maybe an hour or two, but before that, my mom and I watched Guardians of the Galaxy, Toy Story, Despicable Me, Jurassic World. We watched those videos over and over and over again. And over again. Never stopped. Those just kept cycling through over and over. I would have to say, and this is throughout the entire course of the day, starting in triage. Those were like the movies that the like hospital provides in like their TVs or whatever. So we watched those movies over and over and over and over again. I did end up getting a little bit of sleep. I think I slept for maybe an hour or two, and when I finally woke up, it was go time. It was time to have this baby. Starting at that point on, I was constantly checked for dilation. Constantly. And they would check me and be like, okay, we're not going to check you for a while, because if you get checked a lot, you know, that can cause infection. So we like to just check you every so many hours. I can't remember. And they said that the mom usually can just know when it's time to push. So anyway, at that point I got checked, and the midwife said she's ready, she's complete, she is ready to start pushing. And at this point, it was about 7 in the morning, I would have to say. No, 6 in the morning. No. Yes, it was about 6 in the morning that she said, okay, this girl is complete. We need to start getting her some practice pushes. And so they get me all ready. They had my mom and my husband hold my legs, and I was not totally comfortable with that. I wanted both of them more at my head and to have the nurses hold my legs, but the nurses never did. Obviously, I guess they were like checking me and more making sure that I'm pushing right and stuff like that. They did do the stirrups and everything like that to do practice pushes as well, but I really wanted my family more at my head. I didn't really want them down there, just because I didn't want it to be traumatic for them. I didn't care. At this point, I am not modest at all. Anyone has seen me down there. They've seen my top. They've seen everything. I was just not even modest at that point, but I just would have felt more comfortable if they didn't have to see. So that's something noted. Just have that in mind. Do you want your family to hold your legs or not? So anyways, we started doing practice pushes, and apparently I'm pushing great. I'm doing a good job. I am pushing. I'm making something happen. I don't even know at this point. My station, though, the station wouldn't change. He stayed at about a 0 pretty much the entire time. It was a 0 when I got in. Actually, I think he was higher up. I don't remember if those are positives or negatives. I don't remember. But he was a little higher up, and then he dropped down to a 0. I think he got to 1 below. Again, I can't remember if it's +1 or -1. He ended up dropping maybe to there, but then kind of kept teeter-tottering between the two. So I was pushing with everything I had. I'm pushing. I'm going through a lot, and before, actually when I woke up, what woke me up was I started feeling the contractions again. The epidural actually completely wore off on my left side. I could feel everything on my left side, but again, nothing on my right. So that's pretty much what woke me up. So I had to keep pressing the button like, okay, I need something, because I'm feeling everything on the left side. I felt everything. And so I woke up and was pressing the button. And so I never had anything before the epidural. The epidural was the only pain medicine I had. I also was asking for Zofran. And I let every single nurse know that I was very concerned about getting sick, because I do not like getting sick. So I had let them all know I would really like to have Zofran or anything that kind of controls nausea. So I did have that in my system, so that's really what kind of kept me calm as well, is not feeling nauseous, because a lot of women do, and nausea did start happening for me. Also, throughout the entire time, I was having a lot of acid reflux still. Y'all know that I suffered severely with it throughout my pregnancy, but especially during the pushing stages, every time I would push, acid would start coming up, and so I literally had to stop pushing to get a TUM. at that point. I pushed from 6 until 10:15 in the morning. I pushed for almost 4.5 hours constantly. I pushed in every single way I could. They were constantly checking me. They were constantly seeing what was going on. The midwife was called in. I had my mom ready with the camera because we thought this was happening, and she was the designated camera woman. I had her ready with the camera and was like, okay, when she says that the baby's about to come out, Mom, please, or when they, oh no, I said, when they call the midwife, please get the camera ready. They call the midwife, they're like, look, we need you to come in. Well, as I'm pushing, the midwife's like, no, she's still at a station, blah, blah, blah. They could feel the head, obviously. They saw he had a ton of hair. They were going on and on about how much hair he had, and I remember being all excited. And at that point, after pushing for almost 4.5 hours, they didn't understand why he wasn't changing stations. And so we end up getting to a point where a new midwife was to come in. There was a new shift change. She was the midwife that I saw during week 12, and she was the one who made me feel like $1,000,000 because y'all know my week 8 appointment, I was terrified, devastated, very scared. Week 12, I felt amazing. She came in, checked me. She was super excited that she got to be the one to deliver my baby, and she was really excited. And so she checks me. She's checking me for literally like a second. And she's like, honey, he is actually sunny side up, which he was posterior, which basically when you have your baby, you want your baby facing down because the way that their crown is, their crown can, the plates actually overlap each other so you can fit through your pelvic bone and to actually be able to come out into the world. But when they are sunny side up, their bones can't fuse together properly. Their head kind of goes in the wrong way, or it'll go out the wrong way, and it's much harder to push them out, and it puts a lot of strain on them and causes damage. So I, at that point, was devastated to hear that he was sunny side up because I had been pushing already for almost 4.5 hours, and I didn't know if I had already caused any damage. The fact that he wasn't changing station, I knew something was getting stuck. There was a reason why he wasn't able to come out. At that point, I already knew he was going to be a big baby, and I was already warned that if I were to have a natural delivery, that there could be problems with his shoulders, that if they get stuck during the delivery, that there could be problems with his shoulders getting dislocated, and it could actually cause him to need surgery and all this stuff. They had to warn me of all the scary stuff, obviously. So at that point, I was devastated. I had pushed for 4.5 hours, almost 4.5 hours. I was just devastated, but I was not ready to throw in the towel just yet. She ended up saying if I could flip over, there was ways that I could push literally on my hands and knees and all these different ways that we could try to flip the baby. She said before I opted for a C-section, she wanted me to try another method. And so she had me go on my hands and knees, and I had the birthing ball underneath me. Y'all, I was pushing in every single weird direction. My mom was losing it. My mom was so scared for me. They were saying, and this is where it gets a little bit personal and scary, and I wasn't sure what type of stuff I was gonna say, but I was kind of going in and out, I guess. I don't personally remember that. I don't remember going in and out. I don't remember my heart dropping and my heart racing, and I don't remember any of this because at that point, when you were going through labor, your body 100% takes over, and it really takes over your mind too. And when women say that they can't remember the pain of labor and delivery, they can't really remember a lot of it. I truly believe that it is meant to be that way because your body goes through something that I don't know if the human mind should even remember, or at least my story. It's almost like my mind did me a favor of allowing me to not know that my heart was going in and out. I was working hard. My veins were literally bulging out of my head, but they were very, very concerned for me because my vitals were changing, and I didn't know any of this again. I just had the one goal of I'm pushing this baby out, and that's my body just took over. Completely took over. It's like your body knows what to do. When you have contractions, the point of it is to push the baby out. So technically your body just knows what to do. So I didn't know this was going on, and when I had to flip over and start pushing that way, I think it was really hard for my family to see me in that type of situation, in that state of mind. To even flip over alone is very, very hard. And like I said, the epidural wore off. So I was feeling everything on the left side. I was feeling all of those contractions. I was feeling every single thing. And so it was really hard for my family actually to watch me go through this. And they both at that point were saying, let's do a C-section. We need to do a C-section. And they had said that pretty much all of labor. And I didn't understand at the time why they were saying it. But after speaking to them days after delivery and getting to have a one-on-one with my husband, I learned everything that I had went through. And it was scary, you guys. Like, I don't want to go totally into that, but it was scary, and it was something that's very near and dear to my husband and I and my mom and to my family. I was going through a really, really hard time. and they were really scared for me. So I'm not going to go really into that. It's kind of something more personal to us, and I'll just leave it at that. So I went through a really, really hard time. After I had pushed and pushed and pushed on my hands and knees, and I found out he was still sunny side up and had not moved, I said, all right, we're doing a C-section. I can't push anymore. I was terrified of a C-section, to be honest with you. I knew that that would probably be the best for us. After pushing for even just 1 hour, I knew that would be the best option, but I was afraid of it, and I wanted to be able to have him naturally because that's how I felt it was meant to be. I had said over and over I had no problems with a C-section. I wasn't going to be mad at myself or anything like that. I didn't have any issues with the C-section itself. I was just somewhat afraid of it. Afraid of the recovery, I should say. But I had heard from every woman, my mother-in-law, my mom, everyone who had had a C-section, all had the best things to say about it. Totally fine. In fact, even after this whole thing happened, the nurse even said, girl, I would never have a baby natural. I would only do C-section because it was so easy. We'll get into that in a minute. But I ended up saying, let's do C-section. I'm ready. I'm done. My family ended up coming in, giving me hugs and kisses, wishing me well, just really excited, actually. My mom at that point was so relieved to hear I was getting a C-section. She had had a C-section before, and she had always said it was a great way for her to deliver her baby. So she was really relieved that I was going to have a C-section, and at that point I felt relief because I knew, okay, I'm about to see my baby soon. I'm about to meet him for the first time. And so at that point I was really excited but absolutely terrified. My husband's really upset. My mom and my husband's mental state and the state that they were in, I feel as though they went through more than I did, honestly. Watching me, I didn't realize how hard it was for them because of how difficult my story was, which again, I'm not going to get into those. So anyway, I ended up saying, yes, let's do a C-section, and I'm super excited. The midwife was like, honey, you're making the right choice because we don't know if you would have naturally been able to push him out. So they ended up having to call the doctor, obviously, because the midwife cannot actually perform the C-section. They needed to call the on-call doctor, who thankfully was only 15 minutes away. She was out shopping or something, and thankfully she beat us. I don't know how. She beat us into the operating room before we even got there. Obviously, I had to get scrubbed. My husband had to go walk away and get scrubbed as well. Immediately, when you say you're gonna have a C-section, you sign a paper and there's like 50 people coming into your room, which I didn't mention also. When I was going through labor and pushing, they ended up seeing that there was meconium in my fluid. And when that happens, you are at high risk for infection. You and the baby are at high risk for infection. The higher risk for stillborn, it's not a good thing. But it can be controlled and everything like that, but it's not good. If you see that, you really need to get things going. And at that point, my water broke almost 30 hours before that. So it had been quite a while that we needed to make sure this baby got out of me. So yeah, they saw that, and when they did, they immediately, when they see meconium, immediately your baby has to go to the NICU. Not necessarily go, I guess, but the NICU nurses have to be there in case they do need to be rushed to the NICU. So I already had NICU nurses in there. I didn't even know at that point. They didn't want to tell me. But before I went to my C-section, they finally said, just so you know, your son's going to need to be seen by the NICU nurses just to make sure everything's okay and all that good stuff. So when I heard that, I'm like, get him out, let's get this going. I need him in the world. I need y'all working on him. We need to get this going. So the doctor meets me at the operating room. The anesthesiologist came in, which was a different one. And this anesthesiologist, I wish I could just find who he is. I don't have his name, but I'm sure I could figure it out. But I wish I could find him in this world and just hug him and just tell him thank you, because my husband obviously had to go get scrubbed up. He had to get all cleaned up, scrubbed, and ready to go for the C-section. I got scrubbed in and everything. I got my net on. My mom was putting it on. They kept messing up, but I had to get scrubbed in and everything, and he was just an angel. He started working on epidural and putting whatever he had to put in there. He's getting that all worked up. I had to sign a paper with him, and then we get into the operating room, and I just remember white. Everything is so white, but it does not look anything like on Grey's Anatomy. That's what I had expected. It didn't look like that. It almost looked like I was in a robot. I don't know. It was very cool. Actually, very, very cool. So we get to the operating room, and you have to be awake, and to be honest with you, I was so drugged up, it's all kind of a blur. I don't remember a lot of it, but I just remember only me and the anesthesiologist, and also he had a partner who was an angel. I love them. And the doctor was amazing. She's telling me, she's like, honey, let's do this. I got this. I got you, baby. You guys are going to be amazing. Everything's going to be great. She was awesome. She was awesome. That was the other thing. I never had met her before either. She was the other doctor I had never met. So I then saw two I had never met before. So the anesthesiologist starts poking me with something and was like, do you feel this? Does it cause pain? Does it just cause discomfort? There was like 3 different things, and I had to say when he poked me what I felt. I knew there was like a quiet time, and they had to like say, okay, her name is da-da-da, they're announcing everything, she's having a baby boy, we're doing this, whatever. She's been in labor for so long, and they're doing the whole, I think they called it quiet time, but they end up saying everything, and I remember there's like birds flying by. Anyway, the anesthesiologist, my husband at that point again was not able to be in the room, and he's like poking me, talking to me in my ear, just making me feel, y'all, he just made me feel so safe. He was literally my security blanket during that time. And so my husband is getting scrubbed. He finally gets to come in, and as my husband comes in, he's there for maybe a minute, and already my son is born. And above me, obviously I'm laying down, and your arms have to be strapped. That's the other thing. It's a little scary because you're strapped down, and that's something I don't do well with. I do not like to be contained in any kind of way, and so I knew I'd kind of get some anxiety with that, and so I did tell him, please give me Zofran to calm my nerves, because every time I got really nervous, I'd start feeling sick. And so I did have him like load me up on Zofran, and also there's a shot. I don't know what the shot is, but I was loaded up on anything nausea medication. And so my husband comes in, baby's there, and there's a TV above me, and I was able to see him. Everyone just kept saying, congratulations, congratulations. The TV wasn't on yet. So I didn't feel any of it. I had no idea they even cut me, y'all. I did not even know that they cut me, much less my son was there. He didn't cry right off the bat. It took like, I don't know, maybe 5-6 seconds for him to finally cry after they had said congratulations, and they're going on and on. They're like, it's a boy, yada yada yada. Oh my gosh, he's huge, he has a ton of hair. And then finally, because again, the NICU nurses had to be the first to have him, they rushed him over to the little area where the NICU nurses could kind of assess him, and they saw that he was having like a breathing thing. He was breathing, but the way he was breathing was a little off. I don't know what it was called, my husband knows, but I don't know. There was something a little off with his breathing. And so they quickly had him come over, which I'll show y'all.
He's ready for it. Congratulations.
Great.
I'm a hot mess at that point. I'm gonna be a hot mess now, but I finally got to meet him, and it was really, really hard to meet him that way because I wanted so much to be able to just have him on my chest and hold him. And also in that state, it was like I knew he needed to be rushed to the NICU, because if he was having any kind of breathing issues, I just needed him gone and taken care of. And I knew just seeing me at that moment was just not our moment. So it was a really, really quick blur. Everyone's congratulations again. The anesthesiologist is the one who took the video that you guys will see or just saw. And yeah, it just was a really special moment, but at the same time, a terrifying moment. Apparently, my husband kept holding me and holding me tight and kissing me and loving on me. And he's already a very like loving husband, but I didn't quite understand why he was so... He was afraid, and I didn't really understand. And I guess when that happened, I kind of went out of it and came back, and I didn't know. I thought I was there the whole time. And so again, a lot of it's going to be a blur, because I guess my heart rate just dropped, and I went out of it, and then I came back. And so he was just loving on me, and he didn't want to let me go. And I said, go with our son, like go be with him, go love him, please be with him. He needs you more than I do right now. Go. And I had to beg him to go, and he finally did. And so it was another like maybe 15-20 minutes. The anesthesiologist, again, he was my security blanket, because my husband, he got to watch my son be born and all that good stuff and get cleaned up, but I also wanted him to go to NICU. I did not want that baby out of my husband's sight. And so because he had to go to the NICU, I did not, number one, really get to fully meet my son. What you guys saw is the extent of it. And also, I didn't have my husband there. So the anesthesiologist was my security blanket. And so he was there the whole time and really made me feel incredible. And so actually I was told that it would still be like another maybe 15 minutes after the baby's born that they have to get me all situated, but it definitely was more like an hour or so. I had lost a lot of blood. Basically my son was in the birth canal. He was ready to come out naturally. They had to pull him out of the canal and obviously take him out. So they had to really go in me, and they shifted a lot of things around, and it got a little crazy in there.
Ready to be wrapped bundled this. Left alone. 98.8 now.
Much better. Man, I can imagine trying to deliver.
Should I turn the radiant heater off? It's only on 20.
It would be the same. Oh my god.
Turn it completely off. My friend and let him do a hat.
Mama's a champ.
Okay.
I know, when they pulled his head out, I was like, oh, she was not coming out.
His
When
mama.
we saw the first pictures, we're like, wow, that is a big head.
They had to actually push him back up too, because he was down.
Was he?
Yep.
Wow.
He just wasn't coming out.
She tried everything, I heard. So
did.
she was
I was
really.
there with her this morning at like 7:30. She did everything.
I could kind of feel them fixing everything. But yeah, he did go in the birth canal and he was ready to come natural, but he was not physically able to. There was no way I physically could have pushed him out. The doctor herself said there was no way this baby could have come out that way. Just there was no way it could have happened. So what I decided doing a C-section was the right thing to do for both myself and the baby. And they all made me feel good because they knew I felt almost guilty. The mom guilt already set in at that point, like, oh, I couldn't even have my baby natural. And ladies, don't do that. Don't do that. It's all hormones. Honestly, I'm past the hormone stage, so I can say that now. It was all hormones. But that definitely did make me feel better knowing there was no way he was going to come out. So anyway, he was born at 9 pounds. I cannot remember how long. I want to say 21 3/4 inches, and just was absolute perfection. So he did get rushed to the NICU, and I had to go to recovery, which was really, really hard. My husband was with him, so I knew he was in good hands. I knew that he was being loved on and everything was fine there, but it was really sad. I didn't get to have that skin time, that skin-to-skin time. But anyway, I had to go to recovery, and I was in recovery for, I want to say about maybe 1 or 2 hours. I had to be in there, just kind of let the drugs set. They had to make sure that I wasn't having any kind of reaction. So I had to be in the recovery while and this is a different recovery than like your actual recovery room, like your actual like room you're in for the next couple days. I actually had to be in a different one because of the C-section. So basically it's just to monitor you. You're in close monitoring. So I'm in that room, the baby's in the NICU, and finally, I had to beg and beg and beg my nurse. Can I please go see my son? Can I please go see my son? Y'all, I feel great. I feel great. Please let me see my son. So finally, she did let me go up there and see him. So then I went from that recovery up into the NICU. While I was in the NICU, I finally got to hold my son, and I finally got to meet him. And all I could say, even after he was born, the only thing I could say to him was, I am so sorry. And I felt like I did something wrong, because the meconium happened. I felt like, should I have opted for this sooner? I felt like I did something wrong, and all I could say was, I am so sorry. And that sucked. That's how I felt, but nonetheless, he was fine. He ended up coming out of the NICU immediately. When I was in there holding him, I was supposed to have, it was projected that he would have to go back to NICU, and I'd go to my recovery room and then have to somehow make it to where I could go see him. Anyway, the doctor ended up checking him out and said that he was actually fine. He was able to go to the main recovery room with my husband and I. So I got to take him back upstairs and love on him, and y'all, the rest is history. He did have to do all the different tests in the hospital, and he got pricked on his foot like 800 times. Other than that, he is one happy and healthy little boy. I am on cloud 9, you guys. I did have a really hard postpartum though, and I cannot wait to share that video with you guys. I'll even go through all of my C-section postpartum story with y'all. I'll go through all of it. I will let y'all know everything. But what I also didn't really mention, he was born on July 4th. He was born on July 4th at about 10:36 in the morning. So I have a little July 4th baby, which is really exciting. And I remember every time I would go shopping and see July 4th outfits, I never bought one because I was like, I don't know if we're gonna be in the hospital on that day, and I really should have bought an outfit, but I was like, I don't know, and I never bought one because I knew July 4th was an important day. And what's funny is all growing up, July 4th was my favorite day of the year. I don't know why. So again, postpartum is going to be a completely different video because I got a lot to say postpartum. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I am so happy to be back. Again, I'm so sorry it took so long. When I filmed my postpartum video, you will understand why. I'm sorry I did film this video. Technical difficulties. I'm hoping this video works out because I don't want to have to refilm it again. But anyways, that is it, you guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being patient. I am so excited for my motherhood journey with you guys. So again, thank you. Make sure you're following me on Instagram. I update you guys daily over there. So definitely make sure you follow me on Instagram if you constantly want to know what I'm up to. And yeah, so I love you guys. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Take care, everyone. All right, y'all, someone woke up, so I might as well introduce him while I'm in the middle of this video. Here is my baby. He's here. So here is my babe. Say hi. They had him come and kiss my face, and I got to...